Let's get started with the basics. Meet the Robinsons is a CG animated feature about Louis, an orphan whisked away into the near future by Wilbur, a mysterious young time traveler. They meet the Robinsons, Wilbur's family, who live in a fantastical retro-future complex led by Cornelius, an inventor after Louis's own heart. As Louis navigates the quirks of his newfound family, a mysterious man known only as Bowler Hat Guy stalks him, aided by his robot bowler hat. They kidnap and enslave a Tyrannosaurus Rex seed Louis. It is all pretty silly. It's one of two underappreciated early attempts at computer animation from Disney, the other being Bolt. Admittedly, Disney had a long way to go to catch up to DreamWorks and Pixar in the CGI department. A shame, since they were actually the ones to first use CGI broadly with live action in Tron, and then to blend it with 2D animation in The Great Mouse Detective. But Meet the Robinsons was leaps and bounds in all aspects above their previous attempt, Chicken Little, and frankly, the script overcomes any underdefined details in the animation. For starters, it is genuinely heartfelt and funny. Louis is set up as a talented kid whose strengths also sabotage his ability to connect to others, in particular potential forever families. The bowler hat guy is about as threatening and sad as Wile E. Coyote, clearly outclassed by his robotic hat, and the Tyrannosaurus Rex, he gets the best line of the whole film.
What's going on? Why aren't you seizing the boy?
Secondly, this movie's view of the future is unwaveringly bright and kid-friendly in a way that is rarely seen since the original series of Star Trek. Inventions are good. Creativity is good. Family life is good, and will keep improving as technology makes our lives more fun. Now, I'm not saying I buy that, but Meet the Robinsons harkens back to a mid-century belief in a wonderful new world before us, an aesthetic which the design team clearly wanted to explore. Admittedly, this was coming 3 years on the heels of The Incredibles, possibly the greatest imagining of a mid-century modern retro future ever made, so Meet the Robinsons' crew was clearly racing to catch up to what, in my opinion, is one of the finest animated films ever made.
Oh my God, you've gotten fat. Come in, come.
In 2012, author Brian Fies had put out a graphic novel called Whatever Happened to the World of Tomorrow, an examination of the American fascination with futurism going back to the '39 World's Fair in New York. It traces a boy and his father over 50-some years, watching the promise of space in the future through science fact, science fiction, the Cold War, the space race, the moon landing, spacewalks, and ultimately a huge sense of disappointment as economics and problems at home overwhelm that mid-century optimism. Meet the Robinsons catches this arc on its upswing, but detours briefly into a possible dystopian future, the kind of thing imagined in Back to the Future 2 or X-Men Days of Future Past. But ultimately, in this case, optimism wins. After decades of well-earned pessimism, this movie was indeed a breath of fresh air. Look, I'm not suggesting that all cinema needs to be sugar-coated lumps of fantasy, but sometimes it feels like we've forgotten even how to fantasize about what could be accomplished. Prime example, Disney has been toying with movie adaptations of its theme park rides for decades now. Some were successful, some less so, some middle of the road, some trying multiple times and dividing audiences, but their biggest swing and miss, I would say, was Tomorrowland, the usually excellent Brad Bird's dismal 2015 attempt to make one of Disneyland's most important lands into a feature film. I don't want to get too far into the weeds, but the theme park land, Tomorrowland, started rocky back in 1955 for financial reasons, got a zinger of a refresh in 1967 to become the coolest kid on the Disneyland block for years, became steampunk in Paris in 1992, and space opera in Florida in 1994, and then a total mess in California in 1998, which it still has not quite recovered from. Brad Bird's movie tried to connect all these imaginary futuristic dots, and left us with characters using VR to experience Tomorrowland. But when they take the glasses off and actually travel there, it's just a post-apocalyptic mess. It's hardly inspiring. A similar thing happened to Wonder Park, an indie film about a would-be girl Imagineer who constructs a fantasy park with her mother. We get glimpses of this amazing place, but when the mother gets sick, the fantasy is all whisked away, replaced by a post-apocalyptic wasteland. Reviews of that film are mixed, but I will say that I could do with a lot more wonder and joy in it. The same could be said of Tim Burton's rundown Wonderland, and Hook's magicless Never Neverland with its dead crocodiles, starving lost boys, and bored pirates. Why do studios keep doing this? Who thinks disappointment sells? You reasonably reply, but that's not the movie they wanted to make. To which I reply, why not? You can have a bright fantasy world and still have stakes. Seriously, you can have a bright fantasy world and still be threatening and sinister. To be fair, the graphic novel, Whatever Happened to the World of Tomorrow, is all about social history and never really deals with the family's missing mother, whose fate is clearly explained if you read Fai's earlier graphic novel, Mom's Cancer. So, a cousin of Wonder Park in content, if not in style. Meet the Robinsons explores Tomorrowland like Tomorrowland couldn't, and I love it for that. Now I have to go into spoilers about Meet the Robinsons. So, if you want to enjoy this unheralded Disney adventure fresh, please go watch it and then come back. At the end of the film, it's revealed that Louis is not only the inventor of the time machine and the robotic bowler hat, he is actually Cornelius Robinson himself, the founder of the complex and the father of Wilbur, his son who has dragged him into this adventure to assure that Louis/Cornelius fulfills his destiny, despite the wiles of the bowler hat guy, who turns out to be Louis's own roommate back at the orphanage, whose own lack of adoptability was caused by Louis preventing his roommate from sleeping and missing out on the chance of a lifetime to get a forever family. Louis then goes back in time to right the wrongs that caused this whole mess, not unlike, say, Wade Wilson at the end of Deadpool 2. From a literary standpoint, Meet the Robinsons is a direct descendant, actually, of Robert A. Heinlein. The sci-fi legend has this novella called By His Bootstraps, which has exactly the same conceit. A guy meets himself via time travel, and somehow is the secret of his own success. As impossible as that is, he pulls himself into a standing position by his own bootstraps. It's well worth a read, and the intellectual twin, but spiritual opposite, of the 1962 short La Jetee and its remake in 1995, 12 Monkeys by Terry Gilliam, where the hero was his own downfall. Meet the Robinsons combines Heinlein's novella and the 60s sci-fi short to make Louis both the author and destructor of his own destiny, and ultimately his own savior. And now I don't want to make this movie sound too heady. After all, it has octogenarians flirting with wild euphemisms.
Ooh, I think my wife Lucille's baking cookies. Bake them cookies, Lucille!
And octopus butlers. But I will say that Meet the Robinsons is a somewhat eclipsed gem. If you're somebody who's heard Let It Go too many times and wants something new, give this and Bolt a shot.